Welcome to the Archetypal Mosaic. This is Mikhail Tank. Today's guest is Hanna Longdo, 7-time Queen of the SoCal Renaissance Faire, and 2 years before that, understudy. A very special person, very special guest. As someone who's attended the SoCal Renaissance Faire all of these years, I have to say that, Hanna, welcome to the show. You really do have the archetypal energy of the Queen.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mikhail.
If you can please begin by telling the audience about your background, your youth, and what connects you to the interest of maybe England and just the Queen itself.
Okay. So I was actually born into it. My mom is a costume designer at the fair. I was born on a Wednesday and was there on site that Saturday. I was only 3 days old, and even at that time had the opportunity to be presented to the actress who was portraying the Queen at the time. My middle name is Elizabeth, Elizabeth Rose, which is kind of an homage to Elizabeth and then the family sign of the Tudor Rose. So it's kind of something that effectively has been bred into me. I grew up traveling the country with my mom and her business and participating in different fairs. So I kind of grew up with that innate belief that whomever is portraying the Queen is the Queen, and it's kind of ingrained in your personality to go out and take the opportunity to pay homage to them. So, yeah, it's kind of always something that has been a part of my life.
Are you much, do you love literature? Who are some of your favorite authors?
Oh my gosh. Well, of course I have to step on the boat with saying Shakespeare right off the bat because it's so much a part of what we do here. But L.M. Montgomery, read all of the Anne of Green Gables series. Being a redhead with freckles, I mean, it's definitely something that you align yourself with when you're younger. Gosh, I'm looking over here. Who do I have on my bookshelf right now? Paulo Coelho is probably my favorite author of all time. Just his humanity and his writings, which interestingly enough, the other authors that I listed off, that's something that speaks to me very highly also, just talking about the human condition in a very tangible and real way. But I definitely have my take on a little bit more of a fantasy appeal that I like. C.S. Lewis, I grew up reading the Chronicles of Narnia, which kind of goes hand in hand with that whole Renaissance kings and queens and mythology in that field. So kind of broad spectrum. I do a lot of reading.
Now, tell me, have you studied Queen Elizabeth through all the different movies and the Glenda Jackson and all the different versions?
Oh my goodness, let me tell you. Yes, I own the Glenda Jackson series, and there's a lot of the strength in my portrayal that definitely comes from attributes of her. But I have to say that my favorite version of all time is the one that has Tom Hardy as Robert Dudley. It's Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. And it's also another BBC version, probably done, I would say, almost 10 years ago now. And it's just remarkable. There's a level of, again, humanity in the Elizabeth adaptation there that is just really nice. But it's kind of interesting because there's not that there isn't as large of a level of discrepancy when you're reading about the history, but all of the movies and all of the mini-series adaptations definitely take some liberties with their adaptation of the history, we'll say.
And who portrays the Queen in the Tom Hardy biopic?
The Tom Hardy one is, what is her name? Hold on, let's see. Anne-Marie Duff.
Okay. And was she really good?
She's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
She's brilliant. One of the reasons why I appreciate it so much is much like with the Kate Blanchett original Elizabeth,
mm-hmm.
It starts with her before she's queen. So you kind of get a little bit of that youthful buildup.
Mm-hmm.
And because the version of Elizabeth that I play personally is so early in her reign, we're only 2 years in. She's only had the crown for 2 years. So most of the stuff that we know Elizabeth for, or that we think of for her in particular, hasn't even transpired yet because we're so early. And so that was one of the nice things about this particular version as well, because Anne Marie Duff and Tom Hardy do just such a brilliant job of creating the relationship between Lester and the Queen in the beginning. So Elizabeth is known as the Virgin Queen, never having taken a husband and projected even past that of never being involved with any men whatsoever in that regard. And it wasn't until watching the two of them on the screen that I ever believed that, hey, you know what? Maybe something actually did happen between the two of them. Like, their chemistry is so brilliant, and that relationship that they forge as friends, even more than that, is just, oh, gosh, it's brilliant. It is clearly my favorite.
Wonderful. Now, tell me about your portrayal. First question comes to mind is, do you ever sweat because it's so hot and you have to wear all this makeup and costumes?
Without a doubt, yes. It's just part of it. I mean, like, being in costume and being on stage and doing it, we're still human beings. So that's just a part of the environment, a part of what happens. Some days are definitely warmer than others. Our closing weekend this past year at the SoCal Renaissance Faire season was in the mid-90s. It was warm. And I also made the decision to wear my hair down both days, which means, full-length extensions that come back to the mid of my back. So that definitely adds on a lot of heat and temperature as well. So, I mean, it's just part of it. You do your best to still look as well put together as possible, but, it's real life, and it's happening there in the moment.
Do you have fans and cold water and everything you need to keep yourself hydrated?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I have a fantastic team that works not only within the confines of what we're creating historically, which are the ladies-in-waiting and those who are servants for the Queen, but they're also really fulfilling that task and job. During any given day, there are always 3 different positions that are continuously being maintained. That is cup, basket, and pitcher. The cup is precisely what it sounds like. It is the cup that carries my water or my Gatorade, as the case may be, if it's a warm enough day to warrant needing those extra electrolytes. The pitcher is just what it says it is, the pitcher that carries around whatever liquid is being consumed that day. And then the basket is a basket that effectively acts as my purse. Carrying around any special event scripts that I might need, or my ID badge to let people know, like, no, I'm supposed to be back here in case they don't recognize me, like all kinds of stuff like that. And those people are there anytime I'm out and doing anything throughout the course of the day. They are always there and with me. Taken pretty good care of. Very
good team. Tell me, how does it feel to be the prime figure of a fair? Now, let me say this, that as someone who, I've went under the moniker Sir Tank since I was 12 years old, and then I became a Count of Sealand, which is kind of an interesting place, and the Prince was on the show, the current owner of that interesting location in the water. I also had Prince Dmitry Romanov of the Russian royal family on the show. I had Tatiana Fabergé, who I co-interviewed, of the family of the Fabergé eggs for the Tsar. So there's been a lot of royalty a part of this and the previous show that I was a part of, and having you on the show is just, it's a great gift. My question to you is, how does it feel to be the prime symbol of this entire event? Are people aware? I mean, sometimes it seems that they think that you're just another person in a costume, right? They may not know that you happen to be the most valuable person in the whole fair. How does it feel?
It's very interesting because I've done it for almost a decade in the role, and then had my entire life leading up to it beforehand. So my feelings on it have definitely progressed in that time. I luckily have a huge supporting cast. I mean, our particular show has over 1,500 costume performers, and everyone is trained and brought on board to make sure that they are giving that reverence and due diligence to the queen when she comes. I never get to walk anywhere by myself. I always am surrounded by the 3 different people that you've heard of, and generally a male escort, and always yeomen of the guard, which are the queen's bodyguard. So that helps to facilitate the attributes of being the queen, because you have that built-in system right there that is throwing that focus and making that happen. But I also have the huge costume on and the crown and all of these other things that really solidify it. As far as the legitimate personal feelings, it's mind-blowing. I feel such a huge debt of responsibility, for a lack of better way of thinking of it, not only to the other cast members who I'm interacting and interfacing with, because without them throwing that focus and giving that belief and that reverence to the character that I portray, she wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. It's a very symbiotic relationship. Without their belief in it, then I wouldn't be able to do what I do. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most profound moments that I ever had with it, again, I grew up in this environment, being around it my entire life, and I think it was probably either my first or second season full-time as the queen, and I was sitting in, we do a series of different shows throughout the day that use our main players, the Lord Mayor of the town, Francis Drake, the queen, whomever the Lord Mayor is engaged with at the time. And I sat in on a Lord Mayor show just to kind of find out what the overall theme for the show year was going to be. And I was sitting at one of their rehearsals, and Will Wood, who was the actor who plays Francis Drake, got up onto the stage, and he just celebrated his 50th season with our show.
50th, 50.
Again, 50th, wow. Yeah, 50. So he's one of those people that I grew up watching from infancy, and one of the things that he always does is, as his character, he is there to support and to love the queen and to love England, and that is just what he embodies and what he brings. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this rehearsal, and he gets up on stage and he's introduced, and before he goes and does anything or answers any of the questions that were posed to him and being called up on stage, the first thing that he does is drop the cheer for the queen. Let us raise 3 cheers for Her Majesty. Hip, hip, huzzah, hip, hip, huzzah, hip, hip, huzzah. God save the queen. And, there's this act that I have watched done literally by this point in time thousands of times, but he grabs that focus and pulls that reverence from everyone else who's around him, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and I have that moment of clarity and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is all for me. Mm-hmm. That feeling, that enticement, that deep down to his core belief that not only he's pulling from himself, but from all of these people, he is doing for whom I am representing. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. It was just a very, very powerful and very strong moment. But I mean, they happen all the time. One of the things that happens with the queen is she's carried on a litter. We refer to it as her chair, and I have 8 different yeomen who carry me from one place to another on their shoulder, and not a day goes by when that happens and I'm in the chair that there's not an instance of me engaging with one of our audience members and seeing that light in their eye and that excitement that causes me to kind of catch my breath and have, my eyes start filling with tears. This is huge, and it's a lot to think about representing, not only for myself and the person who is that historical figure that I'm, embodying, but also what that means to all of these people.
You know,
I'm getting all misty-eyed.
oh, you brought up something extremely important. We're going to go down in the elevator of depth here for a second. When I was chosen to play Dionysus by Bill T. Jones, and that archetype has stayed with me throughout time. I did a music video and a whole album about it. And your archetype is the queen. Now, let me tell the audience the following. Being somebody who's gone to the Renaissance Fair for many years, I have witnessed a different, I would say there's many different ways of experiencing it. But from my perspective, just an opinion, there's kind of a surface level of saying, well, these are just costumes, these are just pretending people. And then there is something a little deeper, and that is the archetypal value. I mean, when you take it seriously, when you're talking about magnetism, pulling reverence, creating this field of belief, what you're doing is you're accessing the archetypal realm. Do you believe that by doing such a fantastic job, and I have to say, as both an onlooker and somebody who appreciates royalty most of the time, and also somebody who appreciates, these archetypal realms, I have to say you really embody the elegance and also the restraint of the queen. You really embody those elements. I believe that if somebody was to play the queen or Dionysus or any of these tremendous figures on a surface level in order to, while listening to the surface responses of, well, that's just somebody in a costume. And then if one was to take it seriously and just to be, oh, well, I'm just in a costume, then you can get full of yourself or unhappy or be cranky. But if you stay in the archetypal energy and you deliver the truth, there will be people there like me who connect with you on a much deeper level and say, wow, you deserve that role. You're so amazing at it that I believe you and I'm in that realm with you. How does that sound to you? Do you see both versions and many multiple responses to you? And how do you stay true when sometimes people don't believe?
Well, the bottom line on that one for me is, yes, their belief gives them a better experience, and maybe it's the school of acting that I come from personally. When the dress is on and that gate is open, I'm not me anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm the queen. Mm-hmm. And that is what I am there to do. And there are so many different facets that are a part of creating that moment and that space for me to be in. And if someone is there and they are down and they are engaged and they want to play and they're there for the same purpose and remembering and being a part of what we're doing, then that is awesome, because I think that it improves their experience. What we create there, and our goal is to be that immersive day in Port Bedford where people are coming to visit the market fair. So if people lose their everyday compunction to believe in, cars and telephones, and we're here and we're actually in Irwindale and, it's a hot Saturday and, we're just in a park, then they're going to have more fun with what's happening. Mm-hmm. I do my best. And luckily, from the feedback that I've gotten from, lots of different people, when I'm there, it's Elizabeth, and that is what is being represented, and that is what has come out to play, and the thought process and how I'm seeing things and interaging with different people and interacting, it's all going to be from her perspective, her point of view, how she's feeling, what's happening there, because that's who I am at that point, Do you believe
that this realm of accessing the queen energy and becoming her, do you believe that you also, aside from accessing it and becoming it, that you also input your experiences, memories, and your portrayal into the archetypal realm?
It's interesting. I've not necessarily thought about it very much, But the best way that I can think about that question is having the knowledge that when I step out of this role and the next person comes in and takes over and has their opportunity, I know without a doubt that part of what I have tapped into and created and brought forth is also going to be a part of what they do. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I have this information is because I know that I've been so heavily influenced by my predecessors, mm-hmm. by the women that I have watched as I have grown up and seen their adaptation and their embodiment of the character. And it's very interesting because, you know, you talk about reading and research and finding out more about the history and the background. And, you know, we all have the same history that we get to go back and look at. We all have the same source material on this person who lived 500 and some odd years ago that we get to go back and pull from. Mm-hmm. So I think that, yes, it all starts to kind of intermingle. Now, one of the great things is having the opportunity to speak with other women who have gone forward and portrayed this character because, you know, one of the greatest questions that comes up is, okay, well, Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, do you really believe that she was a virgin? Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, like, that is one of the close to the heart secrets that each of these women goes forward and doesn't necessarily share what her personal opinion or feeling or, like, innate belief is of whether or not that happened. But it very clearly dictates how each of us goes out and presents ourselves in interaction. Mm-hmm. So, yes, out there in the ethers tapping in, do I think in some level we're all connected? Yes, I definitely do.
Now, tell us a little bit about how you got the part and how long it takes for you. What is your way of getting, costumed up and makeup? How early, like, do you have to get over there, or do you have it done at home, or how does that work?
I actually prepare there on site, and I'm generally in my dressing room in the morning between 6:30 and 7.
Wow.
And I don't even take the stage until like 11:30, 11:45 in the morning. But it is a multi-step process. We are outside. It is environmental theater, which means, like, before anything else happens, you got to lather up the sunscreen and make sure that, you know, you're prepared and ready to go in that regard, especially being as fair-skinned as I am. Like, it's something that I definitely have to pay attention to. But it's a 3-step process. I'll get there in the morning and put on what we refer to as underpinning, which is like my boomers and my socks and my boots and that first layer of clothing, and then do all the sunscreen stuff, and then start in on my makeup. And I'm generally starting on that process. Takes about an hour to an hour and a half. And then after that, Christine Jones, who is the hairdresser who has been working on my hair for the past 5 to 6 years, will come over and we'll kind of make the decision on what style of hat we're going to be wearing that day. Are we wearing a little diadem or a full style crown, or are we going to wear a hat? Is it May Day or Mother's Day? Are we in a garland? And depending upon what the headwear choice is going to be, that will dictate what the style of hair is. And Christine is amazing. She crafts something brand new every single day. So depending upon what that headpiece is going to be and where it's going to sit, she'll just do a braid, or we'll do a base braid and then stitch in the extensions so that I can have long hair that's down. And then once that's done, we have an all-cast meeting, and so we'll go and we'll kind of figure out what the day is going to look like for everyone, if there's special stuff happening. And when that's done, then we'll finish up the last bit of hair process, and then we'll go into the costume itself, which is multifaceted and has many different layers. And I'm very lucky in the sense that I don't just have one dress. I have like 6 different dresses that I can choose from. So, of course, depending upon what hat we've chosen to wear that day or what headdress I'll be in, then we decide what dress goes along with that. And then I have my dresser, Michelle Fenema, who is also the artist who crafted all of the crowns that I am fortunate enough to wear. She comes over and she helps get me dressed. and then we put on all of the jewelry, and then after all the jewelry is done, then we have to put on the headpiece, and that in and of itself is a whole process because it has to be put on the right placing with whatever the hair is, and then it has to be bobby pins and attached to my hair so that I can go out and do whatever it is that I have to do during the day as the queen, whether that's leaning over and talking to small children, or it's dancing and it's moving. I have to have that piece on securely enough that I can do whatever I need to do without the potential of it falling off. So it's a whole big, huge process. And that's just on the daily.
So basically, during those days, you have 14-hour days.
Effectively, yes.
And you stay in character the whole time. Do you have a lunch break? Do you have time to just be yourself?
You know, I do have lunch, but I eat lunch on stage. I eat with my yeoman of the guard, which is wonderful, and I love it. But I mean, like, the bottom line on that one is going back to, you know, the sweating question. Yes, I'm human, which means throughout the course of the day, there's going to be time where I need to duck backstage and use the bathroom and freshen up and, like, clean off a little bit of the sweat and reapply the powder and be like, okay, all right, we look presentable. We're good. We're ready to go. Let's go back on stage. And, you know, sometimes we have special events that are happening, which means memorizing a certain script or a certain invitation or a little bit of information that we have to get out appropriately. So we'll get backstage to make sure that that's all solid and ready to go.
Wow.
But the majority of the time is spent on stage interacting with our audience and our guests.
Amazing. And, you know, the sweat question came about because when I wear costumes and whenever I go with people, they always ask me, because I like to wear black sometimes. I have some brocade stuff, and they always ask me, aren't you going to sweat all day? It's so hot out. And then I respond by saying, well, look at the queen. I mean, she has so much more stuff to carry on her, and she does such a great job. You know, now back to, there's so many questions I have for you. Now, about knighting, there's the wonderful horse lady who works at the Tea with the Queen. And by the way, anybody who goes to the Renaissance Fair, check out Tea with the Queen. It's a lovely event. Is that one of your only photo ops during the day with people, the Tea with the Queen? And how do you knight people? What's the process for that?
So ordinarily what we do during any fair day is we do a children's knighting ceremony, and that is reserved specifically for children. During our season, we do have some special events where people who have done above and beyond what they need to do just in working for the fair and the entity itself, they have special recognition where they are knighted for all of their hard work. As far as photo ops go, I mean, we're out and about throughout the day on, you know, pretty much a 80-20, depending upon what our shows are, basis. And what that means is anytime the queen gets stopped in the streets or she makes the stop to engage with different people, there's always an opportunity for taking photos. I don't really do any sit-down meet and greet per se. Because one of the things that in my personal experience and time on the throne, I found that once you sit down and you start, then you're kind of stuck there, and everyone, like, it turns into this big, huge queue, and you never have the opportunity to go out and engage with the other people that are there besides the one who have kind of started standing in line. So it's kind of been my personal goal, instead of just having a sit-down meet and greet and availability thing, instead of creating that pomp and circumstance, I like to go out and bring the queen to the people. I mean, if you take the opportunity to do any research on her, you'll find out that that is how she regarded herself. Elizabeth was a queen of the people and went out and walked among them and spent her time with them. And I think one of my favorite historical facts is that when she was making her entrance to go and be coronated through the city of London, she stopped. If there was a peasant, if there was anyone out there who had flowers, who had a gift for her, she stopped her entire train of people so that she could go down and take that gift.
Wow.
so that she could be there and so that she could engage with them. And the Spanish ambassador at the time wrote back to the King of Spain saying that it was completely ridiculous. Like, she had no sense of decorum. She didn't know who she was. She was just stopping willy-nilly to talk with anyone. And I think that that's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, our system of government in the United States is so different than the idea and the concept of a monarchy, especially back then as compared to what it is now. And like, you are there by birthright, yes, but these people are the reason why you're there. So, you know, paying them love and honor and homage is important too.
Beautifully said. Now, let me ask you this: being the queen, you are the primary focus in a way. Have there ever been any kind of scary situations, ultra fans, anything that you needed special, like a strange situation?
You know, it's really interesting. We definitely have differing levels of customers who come in. We are a drinking event, which means that on particular days when it's either really hot or it's really cold, people are definitely in their cups and having a good time. I've never personally had any instances where I have legitimately been afraid for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
I have had different instances where patrons have done things probably where they shouldn't have done them. I was walking out on Progress, which is what we refer to as the parade. This was probably 3 or 4 years now, and I had a woman who was very clearly in her cups, as we like to refer to it, and she broke through the yeomen that were walking with me in an attempt to touch my chest.
Wow.
And she made it happen, and then she looked up at me kind of like abashed and shocked and said, "Wow, they are real." And I was, yes, madam, they are, thank you. And, you know, she was pushed back out of the parade, and we just kept going with what we were doing. So, I mean, not anything where I was afraid, but it was definitely a very funny circumstance. And now it's something that, you know, we laugh and joke about, like making the commentary backstage, oh, yeah, you know, they're real. I also had a guy in the food court. You know, I was out and about and doing my meet and greet and meeting the people, and I saw him from probably, you know, 20 yards away. And one of the things that I've personally become very adept at is kind of paying attention to absolutely everything that is happening around me. I refer to it as a stage manager skill, because before becoming the understudy, that's what I was doing at the fair, is being a stage manager. They kind of learn to be on top of and aware of everything that's happening. And I was standing there and I was talking to the people who were on duty at the time and kind of letting them know what my game plan was and where I wanted to go. And from about 20 feet away, I saw this guy, probably early to mid-30s. He was talking with his cohorts, the other people in his group, and he had a plastic sword, and he was like looking over at me, and like you could see the other people in his group kind of like starting to egg him on. And I'm, you know, talking to them and like looking and like, okay, what's going to happen here? Something's going to happen. And he pulled his sword up above his head and said, "Get the queen," and started charging at me with his sword. And so I kind of just puffed up my chest a little bit and stood there even taller and was essentially inadvertently, unapologetically kind of egging him on, like, okay, like if this is what you're going to do it, here we go. And so I kind of like feel everyone around me like inhale that sharp suck of breath, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And he like gets to right where I am, and I'm like staring him down, and he just turns back around.
Wow.
Like the yeomen are like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And all of the ladies, oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do? Because, you know, we have security measures in place to keep stuff like this from happening, so that, you know, if anyone ever really does step out of line, security is called. They're not allowed to be there and participate anymore. This is something that collectively we're very on top of. But he turns around, and I'm just still staring at his back.
Wow.
Still staring at him as he walks back over to his group of friends. And the yeomen are like, do we need to go call security? Is everything okay? Is everything okay? I'm like, no, we're fine. Everything is acceptable. And he gets back to his group of friends, and I have still, like, even in addressing the people who are checking in with me, I have not broken where I am staring at him.
Wow.
He gets back to his group of friends, and they're, like, laughing and pointing and like, dude, she's pissed. And he turns around and he looks at me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was just kidding. And I'm like, I don't think it was very funny, sir. And his friends are like, oh. And I'm like, perhaps next time you should think forward with your plan a little bit more. And like his friends, oh, you got burned. And they were joking and laughing. And again, the yeoman checked in. Do we need to call security? I'm like, no. He just wanted to play. Like, he honestly didn't have a very good thought process on how he was going to do it, but he really wasn't trying to harm me. That's not what his goal was. That's not what he wanted to do. And, like, it's really funny because, you know, again, I made the decision, like, no, don't call anyone. Don't get him in trouble. Like, that's not going to help anything. That's not what he wanted. And we saw him, again, like, the people who were on duty with me and myself throughout the course of the day. And it was so funny because, like, any time that he would see me throughout the rest of the day, he'd go down on his knee and put his sword in front of him. My sword is for you, your majesty. Like, then we had created this positive relationship from that bit of interaction that kind of honestly scared a lot of people who were there. So you have to learn how to gauge your audience members. You have to learn how to interact with them.
Amazing. Of course, if it was, in other measures, if it was a real sword, you definitely want to, you know, have security there. But it's altogether, what you're saying is so powerful in terms of character building. I mean, this experience that you've had and have gifted so many people with your presence, how has it developed your character?
Oh, immeasurably. It's very interesting because, you know, I had a conversation with Clayton Hamburg. He's the actor who plays Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester, who's kind of effectively, for better suited terms, almost like the Queen's boyfriend. And it was a very intense season 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, I'm getting so confused and so lost in all of this. Like, I don't know where Elizabeth is ending and I'm starting. Because she is a very strong and empowered character, but at the same time, like, if you think about the history there, a lot of that is the whole, you know, faking it until you make it. You have so many external factors that are fighting against her right to be queen, her right to be queen by herself. And so there's a lot of sticking your guns out there and having your own personal belief and remembering who you are and having a sense of destiny and belief in yourself. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I have personally gained because of having the opportunity to portray her. Personal belief in myself, being able to stick to my own guns about things, recognizing and being acknowledging of the fact that it is okay to step outside what the preconceived comfort level should be for, especially for females. You know, I don't mind saying I firmly believe that Elizabeth was the first feminist. Like, let's put that one on the table because she had to be. You know, she fought very strongly for all of the things that she knew she possessed, but that other people didn't believe.
I guess for a queen it would be different. A queen has ultimate authority, so she is above feminism, I guess. She's the ruler. It's an interesting concept for sure. Let me ask you this. Being, you know, let's say there's a lot of girls, and everybody wants to be the princess or the queen, or quite a lot, let's say. And there's a form of unspoken jealousy amongst ladies who may say, wow, why is she the queen, not I? And this is not fair. Have you experienced jealousy like this from ladies in your surroundings, and how do you deal with it? How would you tell if you had a daughter, or if I had a daughter who had needed advice? What would you tell someone like that?
Well, the first thing is that I'm lucky in the sense that I haven't had to deal with jealousy where it is concerned. I have a fantastic group of people that works with me, not only within the fair environment as a whole, but very specifically within the court itself. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that happens with these people who are there is they have the opportunity to see just how much work it is. And this is one of those interesting moments where it comes back once again to, where do I end? Where does she begin? So let's take a look at this one here. At the fair, as the actress who's portraying the queen, people, make the commentary all the time. Oh, you're the queen. You can do whatever you want because you're the queen. But no, I can't. Mm-hmm. I am the queen, which means that I have to present the example to absolutely everyone else who is here. Not only to my fellow cast members who I am working with, but also for the thousands of people who we have coming through the gate every day. Mm-hmm. I have to always be on my A game and always representing the character and the event to the best of my capabilities. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth had to deal with precisely the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, she was queen, which means that she should be able to do whatever she wanted, but it's the exact opposite. When you take on that responsibility, when you take on the parenthood for all of the people in England, you are no longer your own person. Mm-hmm. You live and you exist for them.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
true.
So anyone who has any amount of jealousy or desire, that's the thing to point out to them. It's not all a cakewalk. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're talking character-wise or someone who wants the ability to, be the queen for everything that they think it is there, then, Elizabeth would just point all of that information out to them. It is all fine and well to have this desire and to want it, but you are no longer yourself. Mm-hmm. You are the we. You are the entity, the body politic, the embodiment here, God's chosen on earth, and you are no longer just yourself.
Oh, I must say, you just spoke like a true queen, by the way. You just did.
Well, again, that's thinking about it, what happens. That's
you just spoke from the archetypal source. You did. I mean, if I was to give the microphone, and I've had contact with Her Majesty the Living Queen, and I hope she lives a long time. Mm-hmm. I adore her. But if I was to give a microphone to her or to you with what you just said, I think it would be pretty much the same answer. So that was really, I would say that was the heart of the interview for me. What you just said was so, it was so accurate, and you spoke with such truth to you. It was absolutely beautiful. Now, let me say this. So you've been the official queen of the Renaissance Fair, and we have just heard Hanna actually speak from the archetypal source of the queen for 7 years, and now you have decided to move on to greener pastures, to other things. Can you tell the audience what you have planned and why you made this decision?
Yes. So the first thing that I can say is that I don't have anything definitively planned. Everything is kind of up and out in the ethers, and I'm waiting for that next thing to present itself. And then to answer the second half of that, I made this decision myself. And it was not lightly done. This is something that has been in the works for a number of years now. Not only because they needed to find someone who they felt could step in and replace me, but also because, I needed mental space to be able to start thinking about stepping away from this and doing something else. It legitimately becomes all-consuming, you know. To make a big joke about it, like all of my coffee mugs in my house in some way, shape, or form say something about being the queen. My license plates on my car are personalized, talking about the fact that I am the queen. Like it's a part of all aspects of my life, and I'm making the decision to step away from it now, so that all of those aspects that we previously talked about do not become all-consuming. Meaning that right now I feel like I'm legitimately on the top portion, cresting, being on my A game. I'm very confident and very comfortable and very solid in the role and in what I do and in what I bring to it at the event itself. But you definitely feel the weight and the responsibility and the burden of all of these things. And I'm not saying that it is so much of a burden that it's painful and I don't want to be there because I'm not enjoying it. That's not it at all. I still absolutely enjoy it. I still have my life and my soul touched every single time that I have the opportunity to go out and do it. But I don't want that to change. Mm-hmm. And to quote a line from the musical The Boy from Oz, I'd rather leave while I'm in love, Beautiful. While I still recall the meaning of the word. I want to leave going out on top of everything. I don't want to have been here so long that I'm like, you know, holding on with my claws, not wanting to leave. I would rather go out on the top. And I would rather have the opportunity to make the choice myself personally that, you know, it's time to do something new.
That's beautiful. And who knows? You might be back in the future, right?
You know, the fair is my home. I've been there my entire life. So I can't imagine not being involved or a part of it in some capacity. I'll most likely be away for a year, not performing. That's my assumption. People with very good reason become very attached to their queen, the person who first represented the character for them. And out of respect, I think that it would be better for me to take a season away so that whomever steps into the shoes, whoever takes that role, has the opportunity to, you know, forge and create her identity for people to rally behind. I think that's really important. Amazing.
And well, that's incredible that you said it this way. Now, when you're done with the fair, is it easy for you to come back to the world of just being a regular human being, or do you feel deep inside that the queen is calling you, or that you're connected in a way, or sometimes that you know that it can overtake you, or do you just put it into like a costume away into the closet?
You know, it's kind of a little bit of all of the above, to be honest. And the reason why I say that is because there is a part of me that feels like, you know, the season is done and it's time to go back to everyday life, and I have the ability to just put it away and call on it, you know, when the time comes and I need it for something else. But again, you know, this character, this being, this entity has become very strongly a part of who I am. And so in those moments where I need to find that personal strength or that fortitude in what I'm doing, then that deep down settled space of strength definitely comes from the same place.
Amazing.
When I am walking into a situation where I need to take command of the room or be the focal point or center of attention, I definitely know where to find that space. And my friends and my roommates will tell you all the time that I use the royal we all the time without even recognizing it. So it's all of the above.
It's amazing because in Jungian terminology, there's a term called possessed by the archetype. You know, I've experienced that, and so have a lot of really good actors. I mean, we know from the Joker, Heath Ledger, to many other people, there's sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's very positive. It's just like medicine. I mean, you know, it can be great or not great. Of course, I'm not talking about real medicine. I'm talking about just like soul medicine. So,
Sure.
it's very powerful that it can be so beneficial, but sometimes it can overpower. But nonetheless, whatever you do, whether it's teach or gift people with your presence, I wish you just the most beautiful experiences, and I hope that you do come back at some point, or that the queen that you've created reemerges perhaps in a different medium, because you have done a very beautiful job at it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then, as a final question, let me ask you, as a talisman, if you'd like to share, you know, I, for example, like different stones for different purposes. I have a show about stones. Usually they have to be non-lab created. They have to be real and from nice places and stuff like that. Which stone or which talisman would you be comfortable sharing with the audience helps you contain and even more empower the energy of the queen?
Oh gosh, let's see. You know, there are a lot of different pieces to it. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, as we talked about earlier, in the process of getting ready, there are many different layers that go towards making it happen. I wear a lot of different jewelry on any given day, and many of the different pieces were gifted to the queen. They were pieces that were given by people that not only love that character and that identity, but also who love me personally. One of them in particular that I still have was the first piece of jewelry that was ever given to me when I took over the role. I actually have two of them. The first one is an enamel Tudor rose necklace that was given to me by the writer and producer David Patrick Taylor. And he and I, we worked on an original musical that he wrote. And he was actually the one who encouraged me to go and audition for the role of the queen. And he gave me that necklace before I went in and had my audition. So it kind of became my good luck talisman. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've had it this decade since then. And I actually spent a lot of time wearing it this past season because it seemed very fitting to me, since it was there at the beginning, to once again wear it at the end. And the other piece that I wore this season, very particularly chosen, is a necklace that was given to me by Frida Paris Jones. And she's now passed away, but she was the costume designer who headed up the costume department for the fair for many, many years, and is actually the creator of both the purple gown with the very ornate and beautiful ruff that I wear, and also the gold and red gown. And when I went to her house for my first costume fitting, I was 20 years old at the time, and they were trying to find what dress they would put me in as the understudy, and they put me in a dress that we no longer have in circulation out here at this fair, a beautiful lavender dress. And she had everything on me, and she was, oh, it's just not quite right. I know what it is. And she actually went in and pulled out this particular necklace, and she gave it to me, and she sent me home with it that day. She said, this is yours. And I still have that piece, and I pulled that one out to wear it a lot this season as well. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, just pieces that are important not because I have chosen them personally, but because they have been given to me on this journey by people who are very important to the fact that it has even come into fruition.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I realize that
Of course.
your term as the queen is very American in a way because it matches almost what a presidential double term would be.
It's funny that you say that. Actually, I shouldn't be that surprised by it at all. Sunday morning in my dressing room on my final day when I was preparing to go out and do it one last time, we legitimately, my team and myself, just listened to One Last Time from Hamilton the musical over and over and over again. And it's, where Washington is saying that this is the last time. He's not going to run for president again. He's done. So that's kind of funny that you pulled up on that independently.
And also, it's what you just said is that the last time was this last Sunday, and I was there that day.
You were, yes.
And so it was a true pleasure to be, a part of the fair. I think everything went so smoothly and beautifully. My favorite Jewelry by Dowd, is there.
Yes.
Isn't he exquisite, what he makes?
He is wonderful. It made me laugh because his eldest daughter, Micah, and I, we grew up at the fair together.
Oh, wow.
So talking about being there and being a part of it for years. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the Archetypal Mosaic. Again, whatever you choose to do, may the Queen be with you.
Thank you very much.